Oil is on the rise. Let's focus on that. Brent crude hitting a 3-year high of $75 a barrel. But what is actually behind that? Several factors, including growing political tension that we have been talking about right here in the Middle East, especially over the fate, once again, of that Iran nuclear deal.
And if that deal does fall through, it could push the price of oil even higher. And what impact could that have on other markets and on President Trump's big economic plans? Well, let's go to New York and speak with Adam Johnson, founder and editor of the Bullseye Brief finance guide. And Adam, let me just ask you, where do you see the price of oil going in the months ahead? And let's take into account, for example, a scenario in which that Iran deal collapses.
Yeah, right. Well, certainly as a consumer, I'd like to see it go lower. I think actually there's about a $12 to $15 risk premium that's embedded right now in the price of oil. In other words, I think fair value is really probably somewhere around $55 to $60 simply because there is so much oil in the world. You know, I applaud OPEC, which I've been calling NOPEC for the past 6-7 months because they had so much trouble honoring their quotas. But, you know, they actually got it together. I think what's really happening there is that Saudi Arabia is putting the squeeze on the members. And that's because Saudi Arabia is going to float Aramco, right? That's their state oil company. They want to IPO this stock. It's going to be the largest publicly traded company in the world, way bigger than Exxon, way bigger than Apple. And I think right now they actually want to try to get the price of oil higher so they get a higher valuation. So I think that's one of the subtexts not a lot of people are talking about. They blame it on Iran, but I think actually the Saudis are partly what's behind this whole thing.
Adam, you point to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is rumored to want oil prices at even $100 a barrel. So if you're talking about NOPEC, do these countries have any control over it? Can they stop Riyadh in its tracks?
Well, you know what? It's actually for all the oil producers out there, the higher it goes, the better it is. I mean, you look at U.S. shale producers here in this country, and we are now actually pumping more oil than Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So all the good old boys down in Texas, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, up in the Marcellus Shale, even out in the Dakotas, they're pumping every barrel they can get out of the ground. What they're also doing, by the way, is selling futures against that production to lock in a margin. So that actually brings paper supply onto the market in addition to the hard supply. So that's why I say there's a lot of oil out there. It really doesn't deserve to be trading up at 75 bucks. But, you know, just given the concerns over Iran and Saudi Arabia putting the squeeze on all the member states to not pump, you know, to hold back and honor their quotas, I think that's what has got oil up. But I'm shorting oil up here. I'm certainly not buying into this. I'm actually going the other way and shorting it.
Okay, Adam, that's an interesting position. We know President Trump, though, is nervous. He's tweeted against OPEC and these high oil prices the other day. If you're wrong and oil continues to rise, what kind of impact is that going to have, for example, on the stock market, which we already see starting to go flat, and on the U.S. economy as a whole?
Yeah, well, you know, the big concern and what people are talking about here in New York is that if you actually get the price of oil up to $100, the fact is people are going to have to spend a lot more money on gasoline, and it's going to negate the benefit of the tax cuts, right? $200 billion of stimulus for tax cuts. So there's going to be a groundswell to not let that happen. So my guess is at some point, all that is going to get figured out and get put into the mix. Remember the way Donald Trump operates. The bark is bigger than the bite. We learned that in his first book, Art of the Deal. He takes an extremist position. He calls people out on the carpet, and then he effectively gives ground coming back into the middle in order to look like a good guy and achieve compromise. And when I say the bark is worse than the bite, think about North Korea, right? My button is bigger than yours. I mean, that was scary. That freaked people out. Freaked me out. Certainly freaked the markets out. And now look what's happening. You know, we actually find out that Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State designated for that role, assuming he actually passes, and it looks like he is, spent Easter vacation, if you can call it that, in North Korea trying to hammer out terms for a summit. So this is what happens. Mr. Trump takes an extreme position and then gives ground, and you find progress. And it looks like from what we saw yesterday in Washington between Macron of France and now Trump here in the U.S. that I suspect we're going to see the French get involved with Iran. That's a very historically strong relationship, and I think you're going to see some of this back off. That'll bring the price of oil down, and hopefully I'll start making money on my short oil position.